All right, we're recording.
Tight.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Untitled Horror Podcast. I'm Nick Pupo.
I'm Joe Chlapowski.
This is going to be a podcast about horror films, but I am a guy who doesn't know much about horror.
Yeah, and I have been watching them like a maniac since I was at least in high school. So
I was
pretty deep
in high school. I didn't even like horror. Like I've been afraid of horror for most of my life.
Well, that's understandable because some of these movies are fucking terrifying and they'll haunt your dreams for weeks to years. Yeah, there are some I've never. They've scarred me for life.
You're right. Yeah, that's great. I'm weirdly looking forward to it because it was like after, because I just got out of a relationship and I lived on my own for the first time in my life. So now I'm just like alone in this one bedroom apartment and it's great, but I don't know why horror is the thing that I turn to, but it's like, it's been the only thing that, I'm interested in right now.
That actually is a question that I had written down for you because, I'm really curious as somebody who's a lifelong fan, why somebody who, well into their, early
30s, early 30s.
Early
yeah.
30s, yeah.
Yeah.
Why now? Why now and why horror movies?
That's
question number one that I have for you. But
yeah.
Maybe before we get into that, should we just give a quick little bit on our background?
Yeah, we can talk about our background and also kind of what this podcast is going to be. I think what we're going to do is Joe is going to tell me a movie that I should watch, and then I'll go watch that movie, and then we'll talk about it on this podcast. And if you haven't been able to see from the title, he had me watch a movie called Phantasm. So we'll get to that. But
excited.
We can talk about ourselves.
Yeah. Well, let's go. Like, we know each other because we both started stand-up comedy in Orlando, Florida.
That's right. Yeah. 2000. I started in 2010. You started in what?
2012.
2012.
So, yeah, I just hit 10 years in February.
Yeah. Fucking crazy. Yeah. So that was our life early on in our 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're out in LA and we've reunited along with a bunch of other Orlando comedians.
Yeah. There's a whole gaggle of us out here. It's nice. It's a good sense of community.
Yeah.
To have, moving clear across the country.
Yeah, it's great. It's weird.
It is, but in the best possible way.
Yeah. It's like it feels like a summer camp almost in a way,
Yeah, kind of. Except it's our real.
You have to work and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what better way to spend your adult life than like doing fun shit, often soul-crushing fun shit on a regular basis with your friends. It's great.
Yeah. Yep. They're all here. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Aside from comedy, Nick is also a working actor.
Mm-hmm.
Just most recently appeared in The Offer? Is that
The Offer on Paramount Plus? Yeah.
Yeah, as John Cazalo, Fredo Corleone. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool role.
Check out The Offer.
Yeah. And Joe is a musician, big metalhead.
That's true. Yeah. I have potentially 3 different bands that I'm about to be hopefully playing regularly in now.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How do you even manage that?
Well, because they're all brand new and they've just started. So, none of us are busy yet.
Right.
I have 2 projects on the verge of, like, we're just about ready to record and put out demos.
Yeah.
And that one is tentative still because I agreed to join it, but I haven't had a chance to even check out the music yet.
Right.
I'll just be playing bass in that one. I play guitar and then do vocals and guitar in my own project.
That's badass. How do you? My thing with bands was always like trying to keep people on schedule and keep people together and all the emotions that go with that. Like that's what I loved about stand up was I just like got out of music and I was like I don't have to deal with any of that shit.
That's the beauty of stand up, and one of the great things about it is that you're on your own. You don't have to really rely on other people too much.
Right.
But that's also the double-edged sword where you're on your own and you don't have other people.
It's a lonely road.
You live and die by your own material.
Right.
And
if you go on the road with a band, it's like a little party. I mean, I know it gets old after a while, but like you're hanging out with your best friends.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or possibly people you hate, depending on
your enemies. Sure.
But yeah, I've got, the bandmates I have right now. I have one full band, and they're all friends that I've made through comedy and through, just knowing people.
Yeah.
And they're all good, like solid, reliable guys, and they don't drink too much. They don't get fucked up. And like, I have a feeling, it'll work out long term for that reason. So
Yeah,
we got, pretty disparate musical tastes.
Sure.
Me and the drummer are kind of like, we're into like hardcore, and we're both metalheads, and like a lot of punk and different stuff too. I love all kinds of music. And then the singer and other guitarist in that band is more of like an indie rock folk kind of guy, a little bit like post punk.
Yeah, a little kind of more like me.
Yeah,
because that's where one thing where you and I kind of collide is musically.
Yeah, we diverge a lot there.
Yeah, we used to have a big discussion or almost a feud in Orlando about how you thought the Ramones were better than the Beatles.
That's true, and I still fully believe that.
Yeah, and I believe that you believe that.
Yeah,
yeah. I didn't think you let go of that.
No, I never will. I could be proven wrong scientifically, and I would still have the opinion that the Ramones are better than the Beatles.
Right? Yeah. But, it's definitely an opinion.
Yeah, and you like a lot of like folk and
I like folk and I like sad women.
Yeah,
like musician wise.
Phoebe Bridgers.
I love Phoebe Bridgers, Julian Baker.
Saw her at Coachella a few weeks ago. She was great.
Yeah, she's rules.
I had to make sure I wasn't blocking her because she was standing behind me watching Billie Eilish.
Oh man, I'd love to block her. I just love to be near her for a moment.
It was cool. It was cool to be standing in front of her.
She's so cute.
I like her BC Rich Warlock. It's a sweet ass death metal guitar.
Oh, sick. Okay, yeah, I didn't know what that was.
That's what it is.
All right. So what I do like about what our dynamic with this is like I'm so not a metal guy and I'm so not a horror guy, and you so are that guy.
Yeah, that's two of the things I love the most in the world, and I think that's what. But it's exciting that you got into horror movies because I was like, we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And we haven't had that much in common outside of comedy and some, there's other stuff that we both like. But,
yeah, totally.
It was always kind of like we were opposite ends of the spectrum when it came to a lot of the non-comedy related parts of the culture.
Right. Yeah, and there's one story about Joe. I was dating this girl. I think I was like 21 or 20, because you told me to see Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh, did I?
I think you did.
That was a mean thing to do.
Yeah. I think it was you, but I maybe it was my friend Keon, but somebody told me to go see it. And I always connect this movie with you because I think we at least talked about it one day.
I've talked about it extensively, and I've done like bits about it too.
Right. Yes, that's
back
right.
Back at Tom and Jerry's.
Yeah, Tom and Jerry's. That shithole open mic. $1.50 Yinglings, though, which was the only saving grace.
Incredible.
Yeah. I remember, I will say one small story about that place. Diverge again.
Yeah.
But the worst heckle of my life was at that open mic. And it was so subtle, but this guy was like just being an asshole in the back of the room. Just some dude who was just there, a patron, and he was with his girlfriend, or maybe he was with two girls, which would make it even worse for your ego. But like he was just giving me shit. And I was like, can you just like stop heckling the comedians? And then he's walking out as I'm like doing some more jokes, and he looks at me, he just shakes his head like that. Looks at me, shakes his head as he's walking out, and I was like. It was the most crushing thing I'd ever felt up to that point.
That's brutal.
It was brutal.
Like the people who hung out there were brutal. Like that's like
it was a shithole dive bar.
Like the most hardcore alcoholics on that side of Orlando.
Yeah.
Then occasionally you get a random like group of people who were just there for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But back to the Holocaust thing, the Cannibal Holocaust in specific. I had never seen this movie. I think I was 19 or 20, so I don't think I had met you yet. But I went with my girlfriend at the time because I was like, let's go check it out. And we watched it at the Enzion Theater in Orlando, which was like an indie theater.
I can't believe they showed that at the Enzion. For those of you who don't know Cannibal Holocaust, well, holy shit.
Yeah, it's the most horrifying. It was a very controversial film because they murder animals in it.
Yeah, and not like using special effects. Like they were in the Amazon shooting, and they found actual live animals and killed them on camera.
Yeah, killed them in like long cuts without like editing anything.
Yeah, the director, Ruggiero Deodato, or I don't know if I can't tell which one is his first or last name.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Deodato Ruggiero. But
Yeah.
He forced the actors to like butcher these animals on camera and like just tortured them.
They killed them like a muskrat. They killed like a tortoise.
Yeah, the thing they called a muskrat was actually a coatimundi or a coati, which is related to raccoons.
It's probably like a more intelligent animal, so it's even...
Oh, yeah, way worse than killing a muskrat. It's like killing a raccoon. Like,
God damn it, dude. So I went and saw that movie with my girlfriend, and I was like, good God, this is going to like fuck me up. I'll always remember this. And she was just pissed. Like, she was so mad at me. And I felt like it was one of those things that just really damaged the relationship. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a terrible thing to put someone through if they, aren't warned ahead of time that like it's still awful.
It's a terrible movie.
I own a copy of the movie. I've watched it several times because it's just the most evil fucking hardcore movie just about ever made. I mean, there's been some other stuff throughout the history of film where it's just like they just let these directors become like just fucking maniacs.
Yeah.
But that one in particular, and there's even similar movies. There's Cannibal Ferox, which was like came out around the same time, also Italian.
Yeah.
And both of those movies are just murder, mutilation, sexual violence, cannibalism, everything awful and that's not even the worst part about them, because then they kill real live animals, and both movies did that.
Oh no, I don't like that.
But Ferox cuts away a little faster.
Right.
They don't drag it out as much.
It's a weird thing to do because it's like you're just killing animals to fuck people up, like to like fuck with people's heads. It's not like it's such a weird sadistic way to think. It's like it's not like no one's making a movie about murdering animals being like, I think people are gonna like this,
Yeah, no, you wanted to hurt people. There's supposed to be some subtext about like American consumerism and stuff, it's
the blood is on your hands.
And the director's defense was just like, well, we were using the indigenous people down there as the cast, and they ate all those animals after we killed them.
Yeah,
so
right. Sure. And then I wonder how much they benefited from the making of that movie.
Probably not a whole lot, but apparently they were great to work with. Like, he said, they instinctively knew exactly what to do. Like the best actors.
I mean, I believe that because they don't have the fucking insecurities that everybody has, and they're not trying to make it as actors. They're just
not at all.
What's that? I just live my life while you point that thing at me.
Yeah, they were like, oh, you want us to like pretend to chop up these white people? Well, we're happy to do that.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get into the movie.
Yeah.
Right? So Joe told me to watch Phantasm the other day. That was the movie that you said.
Interesting pronunciation.
What was that? What was it?
I've only ever heard it pronounced Phantasm.
What did I say? Oh, I'm saying Phantasm.
Phantasm.
Interesting. Like Phantasm.
Yeah.
Phantasm. It feels well.
I kind of like the way you're saying it though.
Well, because I see it as like fantastic or sarcasm. Wait, but Phantasm. Phantasm.
It's a word.
It's a word.
It's a word. But
but yes, that was the first movie that you said that I should watch, and I did. It's a 1979 flick.
I believe that's right. Yeah, directed by Don Coscarelli.
Yeah. It's an interesting movie to start with, as a horror.
Interesting in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Both the background of the movie and the movie itself. It was an independent film made on a very low budget. They shot on weekends because most of the cast and crew all still had day jobs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Well, that makes sense because I will say this about the quality of the film, right? So the quality of the film, acting is not good. The acting is some people are okay, but like the main character Joey, the older brother, not a good actor.
Jody.
Yes. That's right. I wrote his name down wrong. But Jody, not a good actor. The kid, I mean, he's a kid. I think he was pretty good.
That's Tom. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Michael is his name in the movie.
Well, I have some questions for you about it, if that works.
Yeah, please. Let's start with some questions.
So you guys know I have this one on DVD. I've seen it like, I don't know, 10, 15 times, something like that.
That's incredible. Yeah, shoot me with
Certain
the question.
movies you can just watch over and over again.
Well, yes, yeah, for you. I mean, I would maybe watch this movie again once.
Just wait. One day you'll be in a mood and you're like, you know what? The only thing that can scratch this itch
Yeah.
is Phantasm, or possibly Phantasm 2, 3, 4, or 5.
I only saw Phantasm 2 on the YouTube page. I had no idea they did 5 of them. Were they the same actors or?
Mostly the same actors, and I think Don Coscarelli directed maybe all but one of them.
Jesus Christ.
He also did Bubba Hotep and John Dies at the End, which we'll probably get to if we keep doing this thing for long enough.
Okay, great.
So let's see. I have some general just questions for you. We can maybe pepper those in.
Sure.
But I have, just to get a little discussion going.
Yeah, hit me.
What was your overall impression? Did you enjoy the movie? Did you like it?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what the plot of this movie is, right?
We can try.
We can try to talk about what the plot of this movie is, right? So, it's.
By the way, this will probably contain spoilers. So.
This will contain spoilers, but it's 1979. You've had like 50 years.
Yeah, it won't ruin watching the movie at all to hear anything about it.
Yeah. And also, what we'll do at the end is that we'll talk about another movie, and then you guys, if you enjoy this podcast, you can watch the movie and then listen to the next episode after having watched it. It'll be great. It'll be like interacting with your audience or something.
Yeah, it's cool. I've got all kinds of fun ideas for how we can expand this thing over time, but I think we're starting out right.
All right. So let's talk about what the plot of this movie is.
Yeah.
Right. So it's how would you describe it?
So your protagonist, you got a kid,
Michael,
and his older brother Jody.
Yeah.
They live alone somewhere in California, I think.
Yeah.
Jody is good friend Reggie is an ice cream man. They used to play in a band together.
That's right. Which, by the way, there's a scene in this movie where Reggie and Jody play guitar.
Yeah.
And I was watching it and I was thinking, I guarantee that this doesn't add anything else to the movie. This doesn't come back. And it doesn't until the very end of the movie, and we'll talk about that.
Well, the backstory is they were in a band together. And,
right.
Reggie also is a musician. You can check him out.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he's got a band. His current band is called, I believe it's Reggie and the Jizz Whalin' Dogies or something like that.
Is his real name Reggie?
Yeah, his real, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Reggie Bannister.
Great. So Reggie, we'll get to Reggie as an ice cream man in this movie.
He's mostly in the Phantasm movies and mostly in Don Coscarelli's stuff.
Oh, man, this is great.
He does have some other parts pretty much exclusively in horror movies.
That's great. Oh, he's such a great
Vietnam veteran, musician.
Oh, yeah.
Cool guy all around.
Yep. Balding ponytail, sideburns.
Yep. And he's had that since the 70s. I think he still might have it.
Yeah, he's a dope guy. So they're in this town, right? Jody and Reggie's friend dies in the beginning of the movie.
Their ex-bandmate dies.
Right. He's murdered in a cemetery, but they don't know that. They think it was a suicide.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's all these suspicious things start happening in the town. There's like these weird what my subtitles described as warbling from the little goblin creatures. We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
There's some kind of creatures roaming around in the cemetery.
Strange coincidence. They look very similar to the Jawas from Star Wars, which came out like the same time.
Is it Jawas?
Yeah.
I was saying Ewok.
Ewoks are the ones from Return of the Jedi. That's the little bear type creatures.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
The Jawas are from the first episode 4, New Hope. That one.
Perfect. Yes.
The OG Star Wars.
I was writing down Ewoks the whole movie, but it's Jawas.
Yeah.
The little hooded
sand guys with the hood who they like resell old droids and stuff.
So they look like Jawas with a couple extra feet at their height. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They call them. They think they're referred to as dwarves and also as some other names that I won't.
Oh yeah.
The less politically correct name for dwarves.
Oh yeah. They
and little
say some
people.
great stuff in this movie.
It was the 70s, man. It was different.
Yeah.
Different time.
It was a very different time. So creepy stuff starts happening in the movie.
Specifically at their friend's funeral. I forget his name. But
it was. I think I wrote it down, Andy or something, but it doesn't matter. He's dead.
A white guy name.
Yeah, very white. And then there's this don't know, like a coroner, right? Who this creepy
Yeah,
ass.
he's like the guy. Yeah, maybe not coroner. He's like the guy who
The head
runs
of the funeral home. Yeah.
What is that? Funeral director,
Mortician, something
yeah.
like that. So he's a huge man, super creepy, pale white, and he's over the top creepy.
Yeah, and his name is it's the Tall Man.
The Tall Man. I called him creepy guy throughout the whole movie, but he
played by Angus Scrim, who, bringing it back, won a Grammy for writing liner notes for the Beatles.
This is crazy, dude.
For writing Beatles liner notes.
Hold on. Are the liner notes the things that go in the album? Like in the cover?
Yeah.
You can win a Grammy for that?
Apparently he has one.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I met him actually at a convention. I met him and Mike, the younger brother.
That's what's going to make this podcast so great, is your fucking weird history with all this shit.
Oh, man, it goes deep. It runs real deep.
That's so funny.
I have such sights to show you.
There's this moment where Jody is kind of roaming around the funeral home. He's looking around, and it's a little bit
walking
ominous.
around like the inside of the
Yeah, he's looking around, and then the tall man comes over.
It's all white and just like white marble, floor to ceiling.
Right, and Jody's a cool guy, by the way. You know, he's wearing a suit for the funeral, but normally he's a leather jacket kind of guy.
He's a rock and roller. He drives a '72 Challenger.
That's
I think,
right.
RT.
Used to be in a fucking band. So the tall man comes up behind him, puts his hand on his shoulder, and he says, "The funeral is about to begin," in this like over the top creepy way, to the point where you like that. Like, I feel like as a main character in real life, you'd be like, "There's something, whatever's going on, this guy is causing it." You know?
Oh yeah.
And then they're loading the funeral, right? They're loading the coffin into the hearse, and then he just like picks it up because it's supposed to be like a 400-pound thing. It's this huge thing. He picks it up like it's nothing, and then just tosses it into the hearse haphazardly.
Yeah, the hundreds of pounds coffin. Yeah, he just throws it in there like it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was a couple things there I wanted to discuss further.
In this part of the film.
Yeah, what we just talked about. I think it was all about Angus Scrim. So the actor who plays the tall man, Angus Scrim, which is a fucking wonderful
incredible name.
He studied classic horror movies to prepare for this. Like he studied like the classic Universal, like the old Gothic horror movies, like Bella. He studied Dracula and Frankenstein, the Wolfman, all that stuff. And a lot of other ones. He was he was really committed to be, bringing that type of classical horror character to the screen. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that makes sense because it feels very classical.
Yeah.
It feels like something from like the 40s.
Right, which is pretty cool because the movie itself, especially for 1979, would have been pretty like, it deals with like other dimensions and like all kinds of like kind of freaky sci-fi type stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess I would classify Phantasm as like supernatural cosmic horror, I think is the genre,
Okay. That makes sense.
Cause like I said, it deals with alternate dimensions and, it doesn't, it adheres to more of a dream logic than to like, a real world logic. Cause there's so many twists and turns where you're like, what reality are we in now with this movie?
Yeah, right. Because there's moments like what follows these scenes, right? Is like Michael is in bed at home and he's having this nightmare.
Yeah.
And his nightmare, right, is that he's like in the cemetery and then all these like zombies come out of the ground and pull him under. Or grab onto him.
Is that when he's riding the dirt bike or is that later?
The dirt bike is during the scene at the funeral, right? Okay. So he's riding around at the funeral.
And he's like, what, 12 probably?
I'd say he's about 12, yeah.
Yeah. Jody's probably like 20, early 20s.
Yeah, 25 or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's like all these creepy things. That's one of the things is that Michael's having these weird nightmares and you're like, for a moment, you're like, is this really happening? Because you don't know. You don't know what this movie is yet.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of, one thing about this is they're kind of playing with what the reality is and what it isn't. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's like basically the plot. That's kind of the first act that kicks it off and gets it going. Question that I just popped into my mind, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scary?
How scary?
Yeah.
Man, it's tough because I think I would probably go around maybe a 6.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good score for a movie from that era.
Yeah, I was gonna say 5, but I felt like that was, I don't know. I wanted to give it an extra point because I feel like I would have been more scared of it as a
Watching
younger,
it, the 70s or 80s.
in the 70s or 80s, or as a younger kid even.
Yeah. Because the effects, they were done, I think they were borderline homemade, most of them, and so like
very practical.
they're
yeah.
pretty dated practical effects, but for me that always adds to the charm of a movie, and I still think they almost always look more realistic than CGI.
Yeah.
Stuff for horror movies specifically.
Right.
It works better with other genres, I think.
I should retract that, and I should go 5 or 4. I should, because it didn't scare me.
Yeah.
But but there were like the whole time I was like, yeah, if I was watching this 40 years ago, I would have been pretty scared.
Yeah, we'll get to those, 9s and 10s.
Yeah.
But I figured, I'd start you off with something a little more middle of the road.
Yeah. I did think though, when this movie started, just from the production company coming up called Bad Robot, I was like, oh, this is going to be scary. I was just like prepared,
Yeah.
But
in its day, it was considered a pretty scary movie. And like, if you watch it, probably under the right circumstances, say at like Cinespia or something, where they show movies in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
Right.
It makes movies way scarier.
So after the funeral, right, Michael goes to this creepy grandma's house who's like a psychic.
Yeah,
right?
crystal ball and everything.
A
a girl, like a neighborhood friend of his grandma.
Right. And she's like this cute blonde girl, and he comes into the house, and she talks to him about like what's on his mind, and he thinks that, he overheard his brother saying that he's going to leave. That he's going to leave town.
Right.
And so then he tells the grandma this whole story about what happened at the funeral, like, and that's when I think we see like the dirt bike stuff happen,
Yeah.
Which is just him riding around on the dirt bike, but then he hears these sounds, and then
he's riding a dirt bike through the cemetery,
right, like you do.
Yeah, pretty 90s scene, really.
Yeah, like a respectable 12-year-old.
Yeah, like I think he jumps it maybe at one point. I don't know, but eventually, he like something unseen causes him to crash.
It's the number one thing that you don't want to do in a cemetery.
Right.
It's the most disrespectful thing.
You're not supposed to do that. It's rude, but it's pretty metal. Pretty metal.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty metal. Michael's talking to the grandma, and she has him put his hand in this box, right? I'm jumping around a little bit.
The grandma doesn't speak, by the way.
She doesn't speak at all. But he puts his hand in this box, and the box like grabs his hand.
Yeah. He's like stuck in this fucking box trying to pull his hand out.
Right.
No explanation for what.
No idea what it is.
Yeah.
And then he says it hurts, and then she says something about like it's the fear that's making this happen. It's like your fear that's keeping your hand or making it hurt or something like that.
Yeah.
And so then he finally gets it out, and then the box disappears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what this movie is, just like kind of anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Nothing's out of the realm of reality.
And that's never described. They never talk about it. The box just disappears. And then he leaves, and then the grandma and the young girl laugh together.
Yeah, they turn to each other and laugh, like, which just adds that extra bit of creepy, and like, this is one of those movies that leaves you with more questions than answers.
Right.
And this gets carried on for a whole series.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the sequels recently. They don't quite add up, but they were made like into the 90s and 2000s.
Oh
so like,
God, dude.
you see like all like Jody and Reggie and Mike all like as adult, like, Mike as like a full grown adult, and like them as like much older guys. And
maybe at some point we can, go through the whole series throughout this pod,
Yeah. I think so.
Spread them out a bit, but so we're introduced to Reggie at this point, right?
Yep.
Reggie is the guy we've mentioned, drives the ice cream truck.
The rock and roll ice cream man.
The rock and roll ice cream man.
And
Very
he's got
cool.
a cool ice cream truck. It's like an open, like old school box truck thing.
Yeah, and what is he towing it on something, or is it? No, it's a full truck.
It's just like a truck with like a open truck with a cooler kind of thing. Like an old timey truck.
He's just like this guy who, before driving ice cream trucks, was very creepy. Mm-hmm. As a man, especially of his, appearance.
I mean, they all look like that, don't they?
I guess so, yeah.
You ever seen a handsome ice cream man?
No. That would be more ominous, I think. That would be like some serial killer shit.
Yeah, if we get real deep, we can watch The Ice Cream Man with Clint Howard.
Is he attractive?
You don't know Clint Howard?
No, I don't.
Ron Howard's brother? Oh, you've seen him.
Okay,
he plays like...
I'm bad with names.
Certain Adam Sandler movie, like in.
Oh yes. Yes,
just
I
like
know exactly who
the
you're talking
ugly
about.
hillbilly guy.
Yes, I forgot
Yeah.
Clint Howard. Yeah, I forgot his brother was an actor.
Found out he was in a band too. Clint Howard and the Killers or something. Like some.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like some like raw 70s style punk band.
Yeah, he's great. He's like one of the best character actors.
But
Okay, so then there's the dueling guitar scene with Joey and Reggie.
Jody and Reggie.
And he says,
Yeah, they just play a little.
they just
kind
play.
Of like,
And I said, will this pay off? And thinking, no, it won't. After they play, Jody says, we're hot as love.
did he say that? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I wrote
that.
it down. It's
There's
right
so
there.
many so many just quotable lines of dialogue in this movie. I think the significance of the guitar, the music scene, where they play that little it's like a half a song kind
Right.
of. There's a tuning fork.
Yes,
and
the tuning fork.
forks
Yeah,
are
I wrote that
big.
down.
That becomes a bigger part of the
Right, because they do a
movie.
close up on it, and if you've watched enough movies, you know when they do a close up like something like that with no explanation, you're like, that's coming back.
Yeah, kind of a Chekhov's rifle. or
Chekhov's tuning
gun.
fork. Yeah. Then we see the girl in the white dress again, right? And I think that's the girl from the grandma's house.
Yes.
And she gets murdered. You just hear her scream. She's at the funeral home.
Oh.
She opens a door, and then she screams, and we cut.
And she's just gone.
She's just
That's
gone.
the last time you see her.
You don't see her. We don't ever see her again. She's just gone. But she disappears. And I think what they were trying to say in the movie is like, something's going on. Something's going on here.
It's a very male-centric movie. Women don't really. They're kind of always. They're all background characters in this movie.
And if they play a big part, they're fucking hot, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're hot blondes. They're given no good dialogue at all.
Yeah,
No story.
No.
And they're
the later Phantasm movies. They're much more diverse and much
woke.
more.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. There's women.
Yeah.
There's people who aren't white.
Hey, times change,
Yeah, but it's nice to see a director evolve, or kind of evolve.
Yeah, he learned. Good for him. So Joey is at the cantina. This is fucking great. I love this. So he picks up a woman.
Jody, we'll get it.
Jody, yeah, because I wrote down Joey until like halfway through the movie. I was like, oh, it's Jody. So Jody is at the cantina, and his brother, he just leaves his brother outside. So Michael's there. He's just outside staring through the window.
And this is just like a little like roadside like bar out, kind of in the desert, like on the outskirts of town.
Right. So Jody goes into the cantina, picks up a woman in record time. Like he goes in, he kind of says something to the girl, and then they just leave.
Yeah, right. It's like my favorite horror host, Joe Bob Briggs, was just talking about this. He's like, anytime you meet a woman that's like way too overeager, like that's a demon, that's a succubus, she's gonna murder you.
Yeah, for sure. But I also just wonder, like, what the fuck he said. I mean,
this was before, yeah.
He just walked in and he was like, "Hey, you want to get out of here and go fuck in a cemetery or something?" Like, what did he say?
Yeah.
That's all he had to say.
It's a good question. That's you have to write your own dialogue for that one.
Yeah. So then they go out into the cemetery. Then they go kind of start fucking in the cemetery.
Yeah, they're gonna bang on a grave.
Yeah.
As
and,
you know.
And this is something we didn't mention in the beginning of the
This is before AIDS.
Before AIDS. Way before
So
AIDS.
people
Not
did
way
this
before
kind
AIDS.
of
AIDS was coming.
Like it was like a year or two away.
It was on the horizon. So then I wrote down tits. We see tits again. It opens on tits. I forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah.
The movie opens on just bare tits close up, like ultra close up. Same woman.
Stabbing Jody and Reggie's old bandmate.
That's right. Oh, he was in the band too?
Yeah, there was their old bandmate was killed, and they thought he did it himself, but
That makes it even more tragic.
but nope, that was not.
So Michael is sitting in the back in the bushes now, and he's watching his brother start to have sex with this woman, which is not okay. It's not good. Shouldn't do that.
But
he's learning.
Jody didn't know he was there. And
Jody
he
didn't know
probably didn't know exactly what was about to happen.
Michael doesn't understand sex yet. Michael's in the bushes, hears a warbling. Then a goblin, the little fucking Jawa, starts chasing Mike. Michael runs through the cemetery screaming. And then Jody's like, "Oh, fucking cock block."
Yeah, my little brother's here.
Yeah, he said he looks at his brother and he says, "I think he's got some kind of problem."
Yeah.
And then Jody goes chasing after him, and he tells Michael, it's probably just a gopher.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's a gopher. That's because
he said a gopher in heat. So a gopher that was horny.
Well, yeah, everybody was horny in 1979.
Yeah. So then the next morning, Jody goes back to the cantina.
Yeah.
in search of the woman, I guess.
Right. And he talks to the bartender,
Talks
right?
to the bartender, and they have this weird little small scene where he goes, hey, you see a lady around? She come back? And he was like, no. And then that was it.
By the way, this is the same girl who stabbed his friend.
Right. That's right.
At the beginning of the movie.
That's right. Now we're back. Michael's working on the car in the garage. Little Mikey, 12-year-old Mikey. And then he hears the warbling.
And he's working on by the way, I made a terrible mistake. It's a 72 Hemi Cuda. That's what it is.
72 Hemi Cuda.
Yeah.
Okay.
A Barracuda, yeah.
Now all you little car freaks won't get upset.
I mean, it's one of like the most iconic muscle cars of all time. You
Right.
won't get that one right. It's
Absolutely.
It's a Hemi Cuda.
Absolutely.
It's a kick-ass car.
I don't want to upset anybody who likes cars. So then here's warbling. Then the car falls on Mike.
Yeah.
But Jody is there just in time to save him.
Yeah, like the jack falls out, right?
Right. And then I know it's not politically correct, but I do love that they said this. So Jody says to Michael, you know, it probably wasn't some goblin or whatever. It's probably just the retarded kid down the street. And so then we cut right after that. Just a hard cut after he says that line.
Which was considered, not nice, but fine to say up until, in the last 10 years that became like don't actually...
Yeah, I mean, I think that word has been a weird one because it's come and gone, I think, a few times.
Yeah.
And our friend Monique has a bit about it, how it's coming back again.
Yeah, she's qualified to do that.
She's qualified to do that. So then, let's see here. Mike takes a knife to the cemetery, and he breaks into the funeral home. And now he's looking around. He's just trying to find some evidence. This is a little 12-year-old Mikey. And now there's a new creepy guy with a fedora who enters.
The little Harriet the spy.
Yeah.
But with a knife.
That's right. Yes, that's exactly right. And so now there's this creepy fedora guy walking around. Michael hides in a coffin.
He's like the maintenance guy, I think, at the funeral home or something.
Right, quote-unquote maintenance guy.
Yeah.
Right? But then enter the tall man, and he tells the guy, hey, just come with me. What are you doing? So crisis averted for Mike. Then Mikey follows them because he really wants to figure out what's going on. Then he's chased by this weird flying ball.
Yeah, it's a silver orb. Just a silver flying ball.
So this is a silver flying ball. Another thing that is not described, there is no exposition that describes what this thing is.
Nope.
But it is flying around at bullet speed through the funeral home, and it's chasing Mike.
It's a silver ball, like you would decorate a Christmas tree with, but then knives come out of it.
Knives come out of it. Yeah, that's right.
It's like these gnarly looking knives come out of the front of it.
It's a spooky thing, but you have no idea what the fuck it is, and it's never explained.
Way over the top for home security.
Absolutely. And I don't know. I mean, still, I'm way ahead of their time. So Mikey's grabbed by the fedora guy, and then the flying ball hits the guy with the fedora.
Yeah, he ducks or something.
Yeah, Mikey ducks. The flying ball hits the fedora guy in the face.
Right in the forehead.
Shoots the knives into his brain. Fucking blood shoots.
Yeah, well, so the knives lodge into his skull. And if that's not bad enough, then a drill bit comes out of the middle of the two knives.
That's
and
right.
It drills
a hole into his head.
It drills slowly into his skull, and blood squirts out the back end.
That's right.
Like it has like a blood.
And then, it shoots it out like a hose.
Yeah.
So all his blood is entering from his brain. And then...
that's where the movie gets that's where it becomes like a gore classic.
Yeah, that's when it really picks
special
up.
effects,
Yeah. And so then there's the creepy guy chases Mike out of the door. Then he runs into another room, closes the door on the tall guy's hands.
Yep.
And then his hand is there, and then Mikey chops the guy's hand off, his fingers, and he's got all this yellow blood.
Yeah.
So just a bunch of yellow blood.
Yellow, like bright yellow.
Not sure why.
Looks like custard or something.
Yeah, it kind of looks delicious.
Yeah.
So then he goes back to Mikey, and he says, hey, Mike, or he goes back to Jody. He says, Jody, I got this thing in this box. I took this thing, and then Jody opens it and looks, and it's a finger that's covered in yellow blood, and it's moving around.
Yeah.
And that's all that Jody needs, by the way, to fully believe Michael.
I mean,
it's not nothing. It's not nothing. But it's like, I would be like, how'd you do this? Did you go pick this up at some novelty store or something?
Yeah, like a magic shop or
Yeah, it's
something?
like a little puppet. He doesn't question it one bit. He's just like, okay.
Well, he already had seen some weird, unexplainable shit.
Stuff
and
has
had some
been
questions of his own.
Stuff has been happening, yeah.
And he's been rationalizing all of it with gophers.
That's right.
And
yeah,
gophers and mentally handicapped children.
Right. So I should give him more credit. So then they say, let's go to the sheriff's office. But then wait, the finger suddenly turns into a little gremlin
It's a fly.
that could fly. It's
Well,
like a
it's-
little
it's a-
gremlin fly.
It's a huge, like, evil housefly.
Yeah.
I believe.
Right. It's massive. But to me, I clocked it as some kind of more of a flying creature than a fly because I think it had red eyes.
Yeah, it's like, it's not like a normal housefly. It's like some kind of evil, like, monster version of a giant fly. Basically, I think is what it is.
Right. And so that thing's flying around, and then they're like, throw it in the garbage disposal. Then they go to the garbage disposal. They put it down the garbage disposal, or they try. But then
It gets on it doesn't get on the back of Mike's head.
yeah, it does go down the back of Mike's
But that's
head.
a great that scene is just like the actors really had to commit to being attacked by this little like
Yes.
creature puppet that
Yeah.
they made.
Oh, that's acting, man.
That movie and Reanimator have, I think, the two best scenes of like getting attacked by a well, we'll get to that one eventually.
Yeah. So Reggie enters, right? Reggie's here. And another line of dialogue that I love by Reggie is, man, it's going to be, he says something about it being like a good summer. He's like, ice cream's going to be flying fast and furious. Very Reggie
so
line.
good.
So then Jody that night leaves to go to the funeral home, right? He needs to see what's going on.
Yeah, so he's going to investigate now.
Right. So he leaves Mikey behind with the shotgun. And he's like, you stay here. You're 12. Take the shotgun. Enjoy yourself. So Jody goes in, and there's immediately a Jawa attack, right?
Yep.
Jody shoots it 4 times, and he runs off. Then there's a car that follows him, though, right? So we don't know this car.
It's a hearse.
It's a hearse. So we think it's probably Tall Man, right?
Yeah.
Jody fires another shot at the car, but it doesn't stop. But then there's a car. It stops right at Joey, and he points his gun at it, and he says, "Who's in there? Get out." Turns out it's a different car, and it's Mike, right?
Yeah.
Little Mikey, 12 years old, driving this
Pulls up in Jody's Hemikuda, right?
Hemikuda. That's right. And so then now there's a big car chase between the hearse and their car. Jody goes out of the window, fires a shotgun, pretty badass, kind of like Rambo style.
Yeah.
Shooting at the hearse, and then
Well,
he
his
just
12-year-old brother's driving.
drives the car. So then Jody fires a shotgun, right? And then he destroys the hearse. Then they approach the vehicle.
It like flips and explodes.
Explodes. Massive explosion. And then they approach it.
This movie has everything.
Every single thing. And there was a Jawa driving. There's a little Jawa driving.
One of their dwarven
That's right.
guys.
And so now they finally have a chance to unmask one of these dwarfs.
Yep.
And they take it off. It's Tommy's face. The dead
Tommy.
friend.
That's the dead friend from the beginning.
dead
That was his
friend.
name. His
Tommy.
name's Tommy.
Tommy. And he's dead. And that's his face. Now there's a lot more questions.
Yeah.
There's a lot more questions that come up. So Jody gets Reggie to bring his truck to load a dead body into the ice cream truck where kids eat. But Reggie does protest.
I mean, better to keep it refrigerated.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. But Reggie does protest. He says, "This guy's not going to leak all over my ice cream, is he?" Which is a fair question to
And
ask.
Reggie, he's an ice cream professional.
Yeah. He takes his job very seriously.
Yeah, something that actually got cut from the movie. There's a scene where the tall man is just in town and Mike just sees him walking by earlier.
That's right.
And like there's like like a cloud of smoke.
No, that wasn't cut. Is it cut from a certain version?
It was cut from the longer shot had Reggie's ice cream shop in the background.
His shop.
Yeah, so he has an ice cream store, but it didn't make the final cut of the movie.
Interesting. Okay. So he has a whole business.
Yeah, he's an ice cream entrepreneur.
Okay, yeah. He's doing all right for himself. He lost the band, but he's a small business owner.
But clearly hasn't given up on music.
No, he's still brilliant. Okay, this is my favorite part of the movie. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite part of the movie, they go back to the house, to Michael and Jody's house. And then they enter before Reggie. And then Reggie is like, all right, time to go into the house. And then there's like this creepy scene of Reggie walking down the hallway of their house. And he's like, guys, hello? And it's like, oh no, what's going to happen to Reggie? Because that's the thing with this movie is you're like, Reggie's going to die. You're like always on edge for Reggie.
Yeah.
You're always worried about him because it's always hinting that something might happen to Reggie.
He's one of those guys that just becomes so likable over time too.
Yeah.
Like the more you see the movie and you more see him in other stuff.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh man, love me some Reggie Bannister.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and his name's Reggie's just a great name. So he's walking through down the hall, creepy, and then boo, right? There's a person who jumps out, and it's Myrtle.
Myrtle, yeah, and remind me who Myrtle is.
No, that's the thing. No one knows who Myrtle is.
Okay.
So no one knows who Myrtle is. But Myrtle, she's a black maid, maybe?
That's right. Yeah, she's like a housekeeper.
Housekeeper, but it's nighttime, and I guess she stays there, but you never see her before this.
Yeah.
And she pops out of this room and she says, "You boys home yet?" And it's like, well, yeah, of course they're home. It's like there's been 2 guys that have entered and there's another guy saying, "Hello?" The reason this is my favorite is that she says, "You boys home yet?" And they don't explain who she is at all. They just said, "Oh, Myrtle." He says like her name. She doesn't come back in the entire movie.
Nope.
You don't see her once again.
There's a lot of that in this movie. A lot of just like people who are just there and then they're just not.
Yeah, and it's actually beautiful. Because that's the thing is like in movies, if you've read like screenwriting books, which I have for no reason, but like
I went to film school,
right? Yeah, of course. But like a lot of the times they're like, don't put like everything that your every frame of the movie should have a reason for being in the movie.
Yeah.
And this does not follow those rules.
Well, and when in screenwriting books, they want it to have a reason that ties into the plot.
Right.
But
if you're going to show something, it should come back.
In a movie like Phantasm or a lot of horror movies, there's things that appear for reasons of, we want to put this scene in the movie. We want, or, for reasons outside of just like this will contribute to, something. Resolving and tying up the plot. It's kind of the opposite of like a Knives Out or something.
Right, which I haven't seen, so I don't get that reference.
Well, it's a whodunit.
Right, sure.
Where
I did see After Party, which is also a whodunit.
Everything has to have an explanation.
Sure, right, exactly.
Phantasm, cosmic horror, nothing has an explanation. And when you think it's explained, it gets turned on its head.
Yeah. So here's Reggie's suggestion when they're all sitting around having a discussion about this. He says, why don't we just find the creepy guy and stomp his face in, which is a very simple, straightforward, but probably the best idea anyone's had yet.
You gotta snag that tall dude.
Let's just find this man and murder him.
Stomp the shit out of him.
Yeah. So
that actually is my favorite line in the movie because I heard it before I ever saw Phantasm. Because Municipal Waste used this part of this scene as to open a song in one of their first, I think is either their first album or one of their first like EPs.
Right.
But yeah, it's the scene where like, Reggie's like, I see it all now.
That's
what we got to do.
Yeah. Like
you got to grab that tall dude. Stomp the shit out of him. We'll figure out what's going on around here.
A light bulb goes off and that's his brilliant thought is we have to go stomp the shit out.
Grab a stake and drive it right through his goddamn heart. And then and my favorite line though is Mike's
because Mike says,
"You got to be shitting me, man. That mother's strong."
I missed that one. I must have been writing down this other line. But this is when I first wrote down that
mother is strong.
This is when I first wrote down that Reggie is definitely going to die because I just had this feeling. I'm like, he's dead. So
for sure, if you've seen any horror movie, the character Reggie is a supporting character, which is not good odds. It's not good, not a good person to be in a horror movie.
So Jody demands Mike is taken to the antique store, right? Which we don't know what that is. We don't know what antique store he's talking about, but that's where he thinks Mikey will be most safe. And this
they know the girls who run it or something.
They know the two girls who turn out to be two very attractive, hot, blonde ladies. But Mikey does find an antique in the old antique shop.
Finds an antique photo, right?
Right.
Old black and white.
Old black and white photo, and it's of the tall man. So we get this idea of
driving like a horse and buggy, like funeral cart.
Yes, to imply that this guy's been around for possibly hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know when photographs were invented. Sometime in the 1800s, right?
Yeah, sometime in the 1800s. It's like an old, like, not quite a daguerreotype, but like early photograph.
Yeah, so maybe 100-year-old photo, something like that.
Horse and cart, like that era.
Absolutely. You guys get it. So Mikey, after he finds that antique photo, he goes to the two hot blondes and he says, I need you to take me home right now because he just knows something's going to go wrong. So the girls just agree. After they were just told, like, please keep my brother safe, they're like, sure.
Whatever. The women in this movie are all very agreeable.
Yep. Reggie drives home. This is a moment where I'm a little worried for Reggie.
Yeah.
Reggie's driving home. There's a noise in the back, right? So he's got that little ghoul in the back of his truck.
Right.
While he's driving after, we cut from there. Then we see Jody has a nightmare that was similar to Mike's in the beginning of the movie. These zombies grabbing onto him.
Yeah.
And then we're back at Hot Blondes driving Mike home, right? And they see there's an overturned ice cream truck. Is Reggie dead? We don't know.
Yeah.
But we assume.
We're pretty worried, though.
Yeah. Not looking good for Reggie. So the Hot Blondes let Mikey go check out the wreckage, which I love. because he's a child. Maybe
Yeah,
he's
why
12.
not?
And they're like, oh, there's an overturned car. You can get out and go look and see what happened.
Yeah.
No Reggie, though. There's no Reggie, but I think he's dead. Mikey goes back in the car, but then there's a little Jawa. Jawa comes in. We got, I think, with 3 Jawas.
Yeah.
Jump into the car and attack all 3 of them.
Yeah. They're getting attacked by these things, like trying to pull them out of the car. Or
Yeah,
they're trying to get in.
I don't know. They're in the car. They get into the car,
Okay,
and
they're
I
in
think
the
they're
car.
trying. And then,
Yeah, they're in the car and they're like attacking and strangling and like just.
yeah, it's getting close to a bloodbath.
Pretty intense scene from what I remember.
Yeah, and so then Michael jumps out of the back of the car because the back of the windshield gets broken open. Then the girls drive off, and he gets flown out the back. So he's now stranded.
Yeah, they just fucking they're out of there.
But then Mikey makes it home, which I love. Another thing about this movie is I don't know what distance is.
He's a resourceful kid. Like, he's like all the Goonies rolled into one.
Right. So Mikey returns home and tells Jody that everybody's dead.
He's upset.
Yeah, he's upset. The girls are gone. And then Jody responds with, we better get you up to your room. So he takes Michael up to his room and locks him in his room. I don't know about that reaction. It doesn't really make sense to me, but he wants to keep his brother safe is the point.
Yeah, if it sort of makes sense in Phantasm, that was good enough.
Yeah, but then because he's a resourceful kid and he's all the Goonies combined, he finds a shotgun shell in his room, and then he attaches it to a hammer.
Yep.
And then he blows the lock off his door by slamming it into the lock.
Mike is a badass kid. Like, he just fucking...
He's like MacGyver. I mean, that was like...
I mean, you have to be if you're like, you lose your parents at a young age and you just got like your one older brother. Like...
Yeah, and that's the thing is you create justifications for this kid. I had no justifications, But that's the thing. That's something that could have gone in the movie, but...
That's what, like 10 repeated viewings, you'll start to...
Right. You just start to write your own backstories.
Yeah. Well, their parents are dead. Their parents are at Morningside.
Right.
That's another thing.
That's a thing we didn't mention. Yeah. Sorry. We should have said that their parents are dead and their parents are at Morningside. So their parents are probably also those Jawas or whatever. Yeah. It's all very sad. So Jody gets to the cemetery. Then we cut back to Michael. He's at the house, right? And then the tall man shows up to the house. And he says, I've been waiting for you. He grabs Mikey, throws him into his hearse.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate and quite scary situation. But then Mikey has a handgun in his pocket.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's one thing he grabbed on his way out. He was like, I'm going to grab this gun. I'm going to run out the door. But then he runs into this tall guy. Tall guy throws him in the car. And
yeah, and it's like a Colt 45 or something.
Yeah, it's like a badass gun. And so Mikey's in the car, in the hearse, and then he shoots out the back window.
Yeah.
And then he shoots out through the floorboards, the back tire.
Yeah.
And then he jumps out of the fucking car.
Yep.
And then...
A lot of action in this one. Not all horror movies have a lot of action, but this one does.
But a lot of really cool practical stuff.
Yeah.
So then the hearse...
some serious stunts.
Right. Which, by the way, this hearse, we're back with the hearse. The hearse exploded.
Yeah.
But now...
It just comes back.
He jumps out of the window. The hearse swerves, hits a pole, explodes. Bigger than the last one.
Yeah.
Right? So... now we're at the funeral home again, right? And now Jody's there, and the flying ball is back. Flying ball's there. Jody and Mike are separated, but the flying ball is flying around, and it is ready for blood.
Yeah, and it moves fast. Like
it moves fucking fast,
coming at
man.
you.
So Mikey finds his father's coffin and finds out that his body's not there.
Yeah, right. They're in the mausoleum.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay, so the mausoleum.
Yeah, so they would be in like a drawer kind of thing, I think.
Right. So he finds his dad in a drawer, and he's not there.
Yeah, just empty.
Empty drawer. But then the flying ball comes back, and Jody is about to kill Mike. Jody shoots it, explodes. So now the flying ball's gone. Don't need to worry about that. And they're back together. But here's a big thing that happens. Jody shows up. I'm sorry, Reggie shows up.
Yeah, Reggie.
Reggie is back.
Yep.
We don't know how.
Survived the wreck.
How the fuck did he do it? How did he get out with the ghoul? But we don't know. That's okay. Because Reggie's kind of a badass. But I did think Reggie was acting a little...
Gets more and more badass as the movies go on, too.
He said he helped the women escape, too. So the hot blondes are safe as well.
Yeah. Oh, and one of the rare things that gets explained.
That's right. So then they enter this white room. And this white room is full of like these weird black kegs.
Just white marble.
White
floor
marble.
to ceiling.
totally white. There's these weird black kegs, and
They're
there's
like big, like kind of plastic barrels, like you would see,
right,
in a warehouse or something.
Right, and they're apparently, if there's like a little window you can look in, and they're filled with those little Jawas.
Yeah.
And there's like these chrome cylinders in there, and Michael goes over to the cylinders, and he hears the grandma on his head say, "Don't fear." And then he puts his hands on the cylinders, and he's sucked into this hell, this red hell, this other dimension.
Right.
Reggie and Jody pull him out.
Yeah, he's like hanging.
Yeah.
Like, one hand in the world that they're in and another hand in this other like weird red desert hellscape.
Right. And in the desert hellscape, there's all these little Ewoks running around or walking around, but they look like they're being controlled, like they're slaves.
Yeah, they're like marching in a line or doing something.
Right. So when they pull my little Mikey out, he's like the fucking the slaves. They're slaves. That's what they're being used for. Then the power goes out, right? Then there's a big attack. There's an
total
attack.
blackout.
Total blackout, and then a bunch of
you can't see
anything happening.
It's just a black screen.
Right. And then you just hear all these different little Jawas making noise.
You hear them attacking.
And then Mike's missing. Mike is gone. Jody's gone. Reggie's left in the room alone, and we're worried for Reggie once again. Then we have a flashback through Jody's eyes to the tuning fork.
Metal cylinders in this room are like basically like tuning forks. And like you hit them, and then they just ring out this note.
That's right. Reggie goes to touch the cylinders. He's sucked into the Ewok world, but he's able to crawl his way out of the room. He gets out, closes the door. And then we cut to Jody.
They're getting sucked in like a vacuum.
Like
right?
a vacuum,
like all of a
that's
sudden
right.
the room, and like all the barrels start like flying toward like this, where these cylinders are is the entrance.
Right, and they're all getting sucked into this place. But Reggie escapes, and then we're back with Jody and Mike, who are looking for each other outside. It's crazy windy, and then there's that blonde killer lady with the tits, right?
Yeah.
And she's just laying on the lawn. And so Jody and Mike kind of like embrace, and then Reggie approaches the lady. And the lady stabs Reggie.
Right, yeah. Her
And
whole
so,
thing is she lures dudes into the cemetery and stabs them.
Reggie is dead. Then the blonde turns into the creepy guy, right? Suddenly.
Yeah, she turns into the tall man.
That's right, the tall man.
So this blonde girl is the tall man.
Right, which is unfortunate for anyone who had sex with her.
Yep.
Then they drive away. Mikey and Jody drive away, and the funeral home disappears into the ether. And so then Jody and Mikey plan. Jody has this idea of like, we're going to throw the tall guy into this mine shaft, right? So what I'm going to do...
Yeah, there's an old abandoned mine shaft right nearby.
Right nearby, perfectly. It's open, and nothing's in there. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to leave you here, right? Which Jody should have learned by now. Don't leave your brother alone. But he takes off, leaving a little guy at home. And immediately, Mikey is attacked.
Yeah.
So Mikey runs.
By the tall man or by the...
It's by the tall man.
Okay, yeah.
So the tall man's back, and he's attacking Mikey. Mikey runs, and the tall guy says, "You play a good game, but the game is finished. Now you die." And Mikey is running through... It's a great line. Mikey has this knife. He's running through the cemetery. He keeps hearing "Don't fear" in his head. And he happens to just run past the mine shaft.
He vaults it, right?
He vaults the mine shaft, and then the tall guy just falls right into the mine shaft. And then boulders just immediately fall on top of the mine shaft.
Yeah.
He looks up. He sees his brother.
Yeah. It was the plan, I think, the whole time.
Yeah, in a weird way, but it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
They didn't talk about it at all, but no planning at all.
Just fucking works out.
It just works out perfectly.
Tremendous sense of relief when this happens.
Right. So then we cut back to something different.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie is back, Joe.
Yes.
Reggie's back.
Yep.
So it's Reggie and Mikey sitting by a fire, and essentially Michael's telling a story to Reggie, and Reggie's just like, "Yeah, you just had a bad dream.
Yep.
It was
you
just
had
a
a
bad dream.
nightmare.
It's okay." And Mikey says, "I know those rocks won't hold. They took Jody." And Reggie says, no, Jody died in a car wreck. And he's like, "I know you're scared, but you're not alone. I can take care of you,
Yeah. So Jody apparently has died in a car crash, and Mike has been living with Reggie now, who's been taking care of him.
Right. And so
this whole thing that happened was, I guess, just a nightmare. Yeah, exactly what you said.
Right. And so Mikey is really sad, but Reggie has this idea of, let's get out of town. And so he goes
Yeah,
upstairs.
he says like, let's take a road trip, you and me. Go grab. He says, go
grab
get your
stuff.
gear.
Go grab your stuff. So Mikey goes upstairs to go grab his stuff. We catch a little glimpse of Reggie jamming out on the guitar a little more.
Yeah,
which is great. We needed that. So Mike goes back up, and he looks at a picture of his brother on the mirror, his picture of Jody.
Real sad,
touching moment. But then he sees in the mirror behind him is the tall man. He's back.
Yeah.
He turns around, sees the tall man, leans back into the mirror. The mirror breaks.
Yep.
And Mikey is pulled into the mirror.
Yeah.
So
he says, boy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He says boy, which he's saying throughout the movie. So
yeah, that's all he says to Mike the whole time is just boy.
Boy. So that's it. Then that's the end of the film.
That is it. We made it through the plot. I mean, that one, it's a convoluted one. So it's hard
convoluted
to talk about if you understand what the fuck happened.
Right.
And you probably don't. You're going to have to watch it.
Right.
But we did our best.
Yeah. So, goddamn. I mean, this was a good learning experience, because it is a little tricky to go through the entire plot of a movie and keep it interesting.
Most of them are a lot simpler than this one.
Right.
This is about as convoluted of a plot as you get with most horror movies.
Right. So I think what I'll do next time is probably just watch the movie, take some basic notes, and then maybe write like a little synopsis.
We'll try to summarize it.
We'll try to summarize it. But I think overall, it wasn't bad,
Yeah.
Right?
So would you say you enjoyed the experience?
I enjoyed the experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was, this was the first one.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to, so a little bit of backstory, how this podcast came to be is Nick and I had talked about doing a podcast together, a movie-related podcast.
Right.
Things happened, never really followed through on the idea.
Right.
And then Nick all of a sudden was interested in horror movies.
Right.
And he posted on Instagram, hey, I watched a couple of horror movies. I enjoyed them. I want to see more. And of course I was like, well, I have like 1,000 that I can recommend. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had watched what? What were the movies?
So the movies that you originally suggested to me were the original Evil Dead, which I haven't watched, Jacob's Ladder.
Yep.
Mandy, which was fun. Yeah, which is a fun movie.
Let the Right One In.
Let the Right One In. Loved that movie.
That's a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
Well, and no, that was what gave us the idea to do this podcast. I did have some other questions for you, so let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you wanting to wrap this up?
No, I mean let's just ask the questions.
So okay, I think we got past my first question.
Right.
And you kind of answered my second question because I was wondering, if you did or didn't like it, like what aspects of the movie did you like? Like what did you think it did well?
I mean, I thought like I said, the practical effects I thought were done well. I thought they were fun.
It's got like they were pretty like DIY. Like those were just like Christmas ornaments, those silver balls, and they just like put them on like fishing line and like
it's great.
They become a bigger thing in the sequels too.
That's great. And so I think to understand these films, you really got to go through the whole series. But I liked the practical effects, and I did like that it was not boring.
Right.
That's a big thing, right? You can watch a movie where you're like, this is terrible. But that movie, like you said, low budget film, right? Mm-hmm. Actors worked on the weekends, which is all cool. I think the backstory with all that stuff makes it way cooler.
Yeah. Most of them, this was like their first movie. Some of them I don't even think were necessarily professional actors. Like,
yeah. So that was really cool. And I mean, just to make a feature film that isn't boring is huge. So I wasn't bored at all. I think the only thing, and I liked it. I think like looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, the acting is
fun kind of ride.
It's a fun ride, and it has great set pieces, right? Stuff that you don't forget.
And it's pretty like there's no really movie like it. It's kind of like its own thing.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it.
What put you off about it? What about it was like, this could have been done better?
Well, the acting.
Yeah.
The acting, it could have had some good actors in it.
Some of the performances are a bit amateurish.
Yeah, they're a bit amateurish. And the dialogue. I mean, as fun as the dialogue is, there's sometimes where I'm just like, what? I mean, it's just like every line of dialogue is just like, what did they...
It's super 70s.
This isn't
like,
how people talk.
It's like... I think they were trying to write it in like cool 70s slang.
Right. Yeah.
But like these were all like, I think Maybe this might have been Don Coscarelli's second movie, possibly. I think he made like a kids movie called Kenny and Company before this,
Okay.
which I think is like a Little Rascals kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Hard pivot.
And then he mostly did horror movies. He also directed The Beastmaster, which came out, a few years later in the early 80s, which was like the PG version of Conan the Barbarian.
Okay.
They played the shit out of it on like TNT or TBS
Yeah.
during the day for years throughout the whole 90s.
Yeah.
Then a bunch of Phantasm sequels. He did John Dies at the End, which is one of my favorite movies. We'll definitely have to get to that one.
Yeah. Totally.
Which is based on a book that was the writer of the book was heavily inspired by the movie Phantasm.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's badass.
Yeah. And so he watched Phantasm as a kid, grew up and wrote John Dies at the End and 2 sequels and then a couple other books.
That's great.
And then Don Coscarelli made the John Dies at the End movie.
That's so cool. What a dream for that guy.
Yeah,
for the author.
I read about that. It was really cool. Speaking of dreams, actually, I read recently that the idea for Phantasm came to Don Coscarelli in a dream. I think that makes a lot of sense because the whole movie, it's one of those very dreamlike
Dreams
movies.
are a theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're a dream. There's multiple dream. You don't know if you're in a dream or if you're in reality or if, you're in another dimension.
Right.
Oh, the music. What did you think of the music? Like the score and stuff?
I think I liked the music.
That yeah, it's pretty iconic score for one that's really not well known to people who aren't horror fans.
It's definitely old style.
Yeah,
but I did like it. It felt relevant.
Yeah, the Swedish death metal band Entombed actually used it, interpolated it with the first track on their iconic 1989 I think album Left Hand Path, which is
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole...
You don't know Swedish death metal.
Nothing.
Entombed is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if after this I'll end up getting into some fucking death metal. They're referencing all these old horror flicks.
Yeah, it's some pretty good crossover. There's a whole subgenre of heavy metal horror movies.
Yeah.
That we can get into. Mostly more on the hair metal side, though, honestly.
Sure. Right.
Only recently have there been some extreme metal related movies.
So, yeah, let's wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Untitled Horror Podcast with Joe and Nick.
Yeah, we're going to think of a title.
Yeah, we'll think of a title.
Maybe we'll edit that in.
Yeah, maybe we'll edit it in. I might also add a thing up top to just be like, hey, we go through the whole plot of this movie.
Yeah, and this is our first episode.
This is our first episode.
If they've listened to podcasts, they'll understand that they get better.
And if they like horror, maybe they'll stick around.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully, I had enough tidbits of information about this movie to keep it interesting.
I think so. I think it made it more interesting for me. So, all right. Well, that's it, guys. Hope you guys keep listening, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to this. This, it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
We hope if you haven't seen Phantasm that you check it out. By the way.
Oh yeah, what's the next movie?
The next movie, I have options for you.
Okay.
We can either do From Beyond or A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Let's do Nightmare. Oh no, let's do From Beyond.
From Beyond?
Yeah.
All right. Another 80s class. Oh, it's an 80s classic. Phantasm 70s.
Fantastic.
All right, we'll look forward to that because this is another one of those movies. So
sweet, love it. All right, thanks guys. Bye.